This piece is a poem by James Agee, set to music by Samuel Barber. It's called Sure on This Shining Night. And it's a piece that I wanted to do here for some time, and Penelope said yes, so here we are. And like any poem, it represents different things to different people, but to me, it's about expectancy, about wholeness, and about the wonder of the universe that we are a part of. So here we are. Sure on this shining night of star-made shadows round, kindness must watch for me this side the ground.
Trishula Wooten. Oh, it's beautiful, Trishula. Thank you so much.
Beautiful, Trishula. Thank you so much. The title today is called In the Beginning, and I can only imagine that in the beginning of all life, there was a sound like that, a heavenly sound like that. In this month of January, in all of the collective centers for spiritual livings around the world, there is a custom. Some people do it, some not, but the custom is to revisit the big book. And by the big book, we're talking about The Science of Mind, which was written by the founder Ernest Holmes. Because in this big book, there's this beautiful synthesized introduction in 4 parts. And that introduction and those 4 parts basically give a template for how you and I have the opportunity to transform our life. So it's kind of like the Cliff Notes. And then if you like the Cliff Notes, you keep on reading. But those introductory pieces in there are transformative. They're a pathway and a guidepost to bring us back to the origin and the remembrance of who and what we are. And so I love being a lifetime perpetual student. I loved the fact that my learning will never end. I love the fact that I will never tap out all of the things that I am to uncover with regards to my humanity in the realm of spirituality in the heavens. I love the fact that my experiences will be what I make them to the degree of my personal permission. And so what really gets me enthused is this new year and the way that every single time a new year rolls around, there is this all-pervasive, energetic sense of personal permission that we tend to give ourselves across the globe. It is that fresh start. It is that clean slate experience. And so let's take advantage of it. Let's allow ourselves today to have what's called beginner's mind, to put aside all of the arrogance that might waft inside of us that says, oh, I know that already. And to be able to listen as though we are being given a beautiful, beautiful set of instructions that is as ancient as time and as relevant as today. And so as we sit in that permissive energy today, we go back to what Dr. Coleman alluded to, and it is that beginning verse in the book of Genesis that says, in the beginning. In the beginning, God. How many of you were there? Some of you, I think, actually, it's been some hard living going on now. In the beginning, God. So we have to think about that and go, how can we even document something that we're not sure of? Because we are in this dense human form, right? The dense human form equates itself to boundaries and finalities and, births and death dates and all of those things that we sort of give prey to. But when you start to move beyond the human experience into the celestial experience, into the connection to that which is spirit, we can begin to contemplate that in the beginning energy, and to begin to synthesize and put together what all of the ancient traditions have taught us. And that is, in the beginning, God. In the beginning, something majestic. In the beginning, something was there. And the wonderful New Thought writer, Thomas Troward, who was one of the greatest influences of our founder, Ernest Holmes, he offered it this way. He said, so think about, in the beginning, there was mass. There was mass, and that mass wanted to evolve into specific form. And what we've been taught through the creative process is that form must be precipitated by thought or desire, right? So in order for effect to have its experience within our lives, there has to be something that precedes that. There has to be a thought. So in the beginning, if there was this burst of form, then there had to be a desire for that form. So in the beginning there was thought, which then deductive reasoning tells us there must be a thinker. There must be a thinker of the thought. And so Thomas Troward called the thinker of the thought originating intelligence. Originating intelligence. It's the best thing I think that we could come up with in language to describe something that's beyond language. But in the beginning was the allness of all. And in the allness of all, there was the creative urge, just like there is the creative urge in you, to create form. So in the beginning, the thinker had the thought. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. I noticed for the first time, I'm a little slow on the upkeep, but I noticed for the first time this week that heavens is plural and earth is not. It doesn't say in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. He created the heavens and the earth. The heavens being the exemplary experience of infinite nature that cannot be defined, that has no beginning and no end, that is the allness. It's infinite in nature. It has that plurality that just continues to perpetuate itself over and over again. So in the beginning, that which was God created this infinite sea of all creation, of all thought, and earth, which is the ability for you and I to take our free will and to tap into that infinite nature to the degree of our receptivity, our recognition, and our allowance of it. What it means, then, is that God created that which is the all-knowingness, created this infinite possibility, this cause and effect, this ability to create, and then he gave us free will to deny it, to forget it, to postpone it, to resist it, to not claim it. It's sitting in baggage claim, still waiting, going round and round and round, waiting for you and I to pick it up and to use it, right? And we think, why would an all-knowing being, this supreme being, this was absolute love, give us the opportunity to forget? its existence. Well, that's the gift of free will. Because you see, if we did not have the gift of free will, then our founder Ernest Holmes would often say we would be nothing more than robots. There would not be any personality. There would not be any journey that our soul would be able to go on to accumulate that wisdom and have that wisdom have meaning. Think about Siddhartha. If you know who Siddhartha is before he became the Buddha, Siddhartha was born into opulence and had everything done for him. Everything, hand and foot, waiting on him. Hand and foot, waiting on him. But the part of him, just like the part of you, that longed to know more was curious. And that curiosity led him to ask his handmaidens and servants to take him out into beyond the palace walls. And it was beyond the palace walls that he got his first glimpse of disease and poverty and man's inhumanity to man. It was the first time he was able to take that into scope, and it was such a personal affront to him and what he had been used to that he just dived into this sorrow and into this angst, and it ignited something within him that wanted to know why. Why did this exist? Why did this exist? This wasn't something he had been exposed to before. And so, he went upon his own journey, a journey of self-inquiry like none other for him, and it elevated him and it transmuted all of that into an awareness of the fact that all of these people are given this free will. That everyone, regardless of circumstance, has their origin in the allness of the heavens. And so our path becomes a path of going back and choosing to be back as a part of the heavens. So in the beginning, God created this infinite range of possibility. But it also gave us the opportunity to forget that, to not do the work for us, but allow us the privilege to do the work for ourselves. So what's fascinating as metaphysicians, as people on a spiritual path, is that many times when we gather together like this, a lot of us, spoken or unspoken, have what I call our religious wounding. Our religious wounding, where we ran away from something. How many of you ran away from something, right? A teaching that no longer served you, something that you outgrew, and we find ourselves in a more permissive energy to begin to explore and to answer. And a lot of times in our running away, we've removed ourselves, but we haven't healed. And so we still have issues with the word God. We still have these mental pictures of God as a separate deity, a judgmental entity, and the dogma associated with that, as if we're being watched constantly, and that our every move is judged, and that God is a judgmental God. And so we have to watch our P's and Q's and constantly be in this repentive energy in order to someday reap the reward of that heaven. So that scripture's been interpreted many ways. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and if you behave, you can have the first one. But if you don't, well, that's in the last book of that book. So you can experience that, right? But you know what is amazing is that when you go back to the original language, the Aramaic language of the Bible, and you look at the Hebrew word for God, it isn't God, it wasn't that. The Hebrew word was Elohim, right? Elohim. And so Elohim, in its translation, means absolute universality. In the beginning, absolute universality created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, Elohim is the originating universal spirit. Again, without gender, it's life itself, it's creation itself. So in the beginning, Elohim, the originating universal spirit, is the thing that sparked the creation by a demandment. Because you see, once you are a part of the creation, then in order to move that creation forward, you have to speak the word, you have to make a commandment or a demandment by using the law. And the first commandment was, let there be light. Light meaning consciousness. And so let there be consciousness. Let there be awareness. And through evolution, what happens is that consciousness, that awareness, then downplays itself by means of you and I. And we become the instruments by which that is expressed. But some of us still still, even though we might have been well versed in this and our intellect has been very wrapped up in the study of mental science practices, we still have religious wounding about the ideas of God, not realizing that the interpretation of that word was something that was created by man to govern and overpower man. You get it? And so, do you ever play that childhood game of gossip when you were little, and there's this big circle, and one person is picked to start, and so they whisper something into the ear of the person next to them, and then you're supposed to take turns whispering that all the way around. And by the time it gets to the end, it's nothing like what has been said in the origin of that game. And thus is the same for God. It's like Elohim, absolute universality, the connection of all that is, oneness. I'm going to get you. And that's what happens when it gets back around. Lost in translation. Right? Lost in translation. And so we allow ourselves to let go of the wounding. And let me tell you, all things that are separate from that Elohim energy, that originating intelligence, all things that are not in alignment with that went through the same process. And what we are living by and holding true and factual for ourselves is something that has been bastardized by the origin of your truth and your connection. And so our founder, Ernest Holmes, says, how do I, in his infinite wisdom, take the synthesis of all this ancient wisdom, take the synthesis of all of this knowledge, this spiritual truth, and deliver it in his way, in the way of the science of mind? And so he broke it down in those 4 parts, and the first of the 4 parts, then he called the thing itself. The thing itself being the Elohim. The thing itself being the originating universal spirit. And isn't it funny that a lot of people, myself included when I started studying this, I really struggled with the idea of calling God the thing itself. It felt very distant, it felt cold, it felt non-fuzzy, it felt non-communicative. There was just this sterility to it that I couldn't identify. Because even in my confusion and even in my illusion, there was still some marginal sense of relief that there was something out there that I could go to. Well, guess what? That's not lost. Because even though the thing itself is not gender, even though the thing itself, again, in our language, cannot be defined, it is all loving. And it needs us. It literally does. That word is used deliberately. It needs us to be able to express. So you and I become the personification or the individualization of that love. And there's nothing greater than that. There couldn't be a more profound relationship that you and I could have, but the one with the thing itself, the allness that is. And so I want to cultivate that relationship. I want to honor that relationship. There are things that one must do in order to have a healthy relationship. And number 1 is communicate. I must learn to communicate with the relationship of the thing itself. And so Ernest describes the thing itself, and he says it is originating intelligence. It's created consciousness, awareness, and it gave us that gift, the ability to remember and to forget. And so heaven being that oneness, earth being the experience of our free will. I find that sometimes I want that work done for me. But the beauty of the thing itself is it sits and waits for recognition. It does not usurp our free will. It does not override our ability to make our choices. How loving can that be? It's an amazing, amazing gift. It's like parenting 101, right? I love you, and I love you enough to let you go and have your experience. I love you enough to let you go and to make the choices that you need to make in order for you to begin to uncover the truth of your being. I'm not going to do that for you. Imagine growing up in this physical earth plane if someone constantly demanded to do it for us. What would we do? We would rebel. We would be defensive. And we would denounce that, and we would do everything within our power to remove ourselves from that because it is against our inherent nature. I can't grow the tree must grow itself. I can't command the flower to bloom. The flower already knows how to bloom. I can't do the spiritual work for you. You can't do it for someone else because they already have the inherent wisdom inside of them to allow that to take place. That's the immensity and the gift of the thing itself and being in relationship with that. The next part then, he said, was the way that it works. So how does this thing itself and my relationship to it work? Well, the way it works is through recognition. Key word, recognition. Our whole life is built upon developing the muscle of recognition. If I can accept the fact, the thing itself, this Elohim, this all-sustaining energy power of creation is there, then my responsibility is to recognize it. To recognize it, not just on special occasions, not just when it's convenient, not just when I wake up and have a good hair day, not just when all of these things are whistling along and there are unicorns and daisies and pink cotton candy, but it's to realize and to know that beyond exception, that in every single thing that is going on, I am being invited to create space for recognition, to be able to see it. And so that's a part of the gift and the extension of our free will. Is how do I begin to look at seeming chaos and be willing to stand there and go, even in the apparent absence of that which I know to be God, there is God. Even in the apparent absence of order, there is order. Even in the apparent absence of love, there will always be love because it cannot be. Because the thing itself is all-encompassing. In the book of Hebrews, we read that we cannot enter into we cannot enter into anything if there is unbelief. It is said that a house divided against itself cannot stand. The house is you. The house divided against itself cannot stand, meaning that the part of me that is heavenly, the innate part of me, that is undeniably always will be connected to that which is the originating intelligence, cannot stand if the other part of me, the earth part of me, does not come into alignment with it. And so our practice of recognition is to realize that what it is that is there for us must be continually invited in across the threshold of our experience. Holmes writes that if we say we can only experience a little good, then we shall experience but a little good. But if we say, as did Ralph Waldo Emerson, there is no great and no small to the soul that maketh all, then we may experience a greater good because we have conceived it. So you see, there must be a recognition of unlimited possibility. There must be something beyond the cloud that I see in the sky. There must be something beyond the carpet and this floor. There must be a continuance beyond my physical ability to see things. And the same holds true for your dreams and your passions. There must be more than what is just being presented to me in black and white. There must be a greater good. And so my recognition of that is I now move forward to that greater good in full realization and acceptance that it will be there. And that's the way that it works, is through my recognition. I must recognize first. I must believe and then see. The next part is what it does. Well, what it does, what this thing itself, through its recognition does then, is it begins to work through you by the use of law. By the use of law, by spiritual law, through cause and effect. Law, cause, we know, is choosing. It is choice. And so when we begin to understand our origin, that in the beginning, there was this immaculate energy, this life force, always had been, always will be. When it chose to continue to extend itself by choosing form, that we were a part of that divine plan. And that it wants to work through us and fill us, and it wants us to be that instrument, again, through free will. So it's not going to say, this is what you must do. but it's going to say you are invited to participate in the landscape of creativity to the degree of your recognition and your willingness. What does that mean? That means that through the constant understanding, use, and practice of this, you now may be that instrument of God in full glory, standing in your power and realizing that whatever is in mind through the channel and the download of creative process through spiritual law, it must come to pass. That's why it says, whatever it is that you believe, first knowing, it shall be done unto you. It shall be given unto you. Ask, choose, and you shall receive. That's law. That's law. And so in our free will, we forget the fact that we have a conscious use of the law. We're still using the law, but many times we're using it unconsciously. Meaning that we're choosing things that are not in alignment with the thing itself, which is us. We are choosing diminishment. Why are we choosing diminishment? I'm choosing diminishment because that's what I've seen and that's what I've experienced. That's the default mechanism of the dense earth around me and the culture around me. But I'm not supposed to abide by that because my inherent nature says, nah, that's a veil of illusion. You are not fact, you are truth. And what is before you is the opportunity to begin to prove that. So what it does, what it does is it uses law through you as the basis of all creation. And so we all draw forth different results based upon this use of law. Let me say that again. We all draw forth different results based upon the use of this same law. Different results, same law. Again, the law is not varied, but it is definite. But we use it only at the level of our recognition of it. So that's like saying, boy, this world is awful. Wow, this world is infinite potentiality. Two different varied perceptions, same world. Where does that apply to you in your life? What is it that you are seeing through the lens of that dense, finite experience of earth, forgetting your origin, forgetting that in the beginning, there is the Genesis seed of all possibility, and that you are called upon to wake up and to return home. That's what the whole story of the prodigal son is about. The archetype of the prodigal son is about being born in this immaculate, infinite, loving presence, household, all care, all love. Anything that could nurture you to be your highest and best is there. That's what you were born of. I'm not talking about your physical birth. I'm talking about your spiritual birth, the origin of you. Some of us had different experiences in our earthly birth, and that's fine. But the spiritual birth is what we're talking about. And see, we leave that. The story says we go off into the far country. The far country is the distancing from consciousness into unconsciousness. And eventually, something happens. Something happens in the pig pen of that unconsciousness where we fall to our knees in reverence and acceptance and longing to go home. And thus we go back and we wonder, as we go back, will I be judged? Will I be judged? Will I be judged? Will I be accepted? Only to discover what? That none of that even resides in the mind of the loving home that is waiting us. And so that which is heaven, in the beginning God created the heavens. Heaven is not a destination in the afterlife. It is the here and now. It is the waking up from that unconscious state and coming back home. And so Ernest said what it does is it does this, and it gives you the perpetual gift over and over again through the use of your conscious association with law. It is, what does he say? It is done unto you as you believe. And I love the word as in that. It is done unto you the moment that you believe. As, simultaneously, not when I get around to it. It is done unto you when I feel like it next Christmas. No, it is done unto you as you return and make the journey home. And so then, how he ends that fourth part, the thing itself, the way it works, recognition, what it does, it uses law, and then he ends it with how to use it. How to use it, which is my favorite one. How to use it. This is the playground, right? So how you use it is, you ready? Use it. Will the ushers please come forward now? How to use it is we get off this and we go out into the dense world in order to prove the principle of creation by means of you in your own personalized fashion, in your beautiful, unique way. You take the oneness and you personalize it through your gifts and talents. And you continually prove the principle over and over again. You stand before a statistic that says people your age can't do this, and you go to that statistic and you say, I remember my origin, and you prove the principle, if nothing more than to show you that you are not bound by any earth-created limitation. You go before a statistic that says you can't make money doing this particular creative thing, and you go and you do that creative thing, all the while knowing that your origin is from the thing itself, and what you get in return for that will be what you expect through the use of law. And see, the thing is, most of us know this in our intellect, but we have yet to do the fourth step, which is to stand and say, how do I use this? I do it. I prove the principle. I show up. Holmes writes, one of the great difficulties in this new order of thought is that we are likely to indulge in too much theory and too little practice. And this is what I love. As a matter of fact, we only know as much as we can prove by actual demonstration. Did you hear that? We only know as much as we can prove by having done it. Maybe that's why we gravitate to teachers and scholars who are constantly doing things in order to evolve more. You know, if I'm going to go to a relationship counselor, I want to see how their relationships are. I want to see how they're active. It's not that they're perfect and that it has mastered, but there's a conscious, deliberate thing there in order to continue to grow. So no one is ever all teacher and all student. We swap back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And so in order for me, how do I use it? When I look at the permissive energy of the new year, I wanted to do a fire walk for a very long time. And every single time I was going to do it, something got in the way. And so the Center for Spiritual Living in Asheville, North Carolina, they do a fire walk on New Year's Day every year. So I get in the car and I drive to Asheville. And see, here's the other thing about how to use it. We fall prey to the idea that the way that we use it is comparative to the way other people have used it. So I know I'm going to be successful because I'm going to benchmark my things based upon how you did it. And then that's the way I'll know. And so we fall prey sometimes to the way it's got to look when how to use it is uniquely yours. It's uniquely your experience. So what I had heard about a fire walk up until that point was, if you do it right, woo, pressure, pressure, pressure. If you do it right, it'll be like floating on rose petals, right? So, you know me wanting to get it right, right? So, oh, it's my time. You know, there's about 65 people participating in the ceremony. So all 65 of us had to engage in building the firewalk. And so we had blessed the wood, and then we went inside for a very lengthy orientation. And I'm getting like, I want to walk the fire, not realizing that the actual wood has to burn down, right? So this is all planned out perfectly. So finally, though, it's time. And now it's dark, and it's very, very cold out. And this fire, and they tell us it's 1,500 degrees in these embers. And some of the flames are still lapping on the side, just for dramatic effect. And some of the wood that didn't get processed, right? But they've, the fire tenders have set this all out. And you literally take 6 or 7 steps maximum. And so I'm ready for my rose petal experience because I'm spiritual. So, so step number 1, and you don't hesitate, you just keep walking. It was like walking on fire. If I had given myself permission, I probably would have screamed. It burned. Oh my God. You know that initial thing when you put your hand accidentally on some hot stove or a hot handle or whatever? That's exactly what it felt like. And it was just, oh my God, it was just almost unbearable. But I mean, it was over as soon as it started. And so as I walked across that, and it was over, I'm thinking, oh, you didn't do it right. You know, if you did it right, it would have felt like rose petals. And so Dr. John is on the other side, and he greets you, and he gives you a bear hug, and he lifts you up, and then they hose your feet for any embers that might be stuck between your toes. And hosing my feet, and I'm going, oh my God. Oh my God. And I take my sweet time in putting my socks and shoes back on because my feet are in the ice of the grass. And I'm going, oh my God, you didn't do it right. Don't look at your feet. 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 And I'm trying to reconcile in my mind what got in the way. What got in the way of this? All the while forgetting, I just walked on fire. But it didn't feel like rose petals. So anyway, I leave and I go back and I'm so hungry and I go to a restaurant and it hits me that when I was a kid and I would get burned, we would put butter on that. So I asked the waitress, do you have any butter? I said, I'd like some butter to go. And she looked at me and she went, well, darling, it was in Nashville, well, darling, why do you want that? And I didn't have the heart to say, well, I just walked on fire. My original thing, all I could do was, I really like butter. So I go back to the hotel room and I lather on the butter. Don't look at your feet. Don't look at your feet. Don't look at your feet. I'm putting spooning that butter on my feet. My feet absorb the butter. I put another application on there. Not margarine, mind you, butter. Non-GMO butter. And the butter's going into my skin. I put my socks on. I go to bed. My feet sting through the night. I wake up the next morning, and it's all gone, like nothing had ever happened. And I realize, and I go, we're so funny that when we go to use it, how to use it, and apply the principle, we have created, just like that gossip circle, this is the way it's supposed to look like. This is the way that's appropriate. You know, you have to earn this much money in order for you to be a success. You have to have this thing happen in order for you to be accepted into the realm of society and trends and all of this kind of stuff, when in actuality, you walk on fire the way that you need to walk on fire. You prove it the way that you need to prove it. You do what speaks to you and wakes you up to the origin and the truth of who and what you are. And you allow that to be enough. And you revel in that experience. But you don't linger there because you are on to the next great thing and the next great thing. That's how you individualize the thing itself. Not cookie cutter the thing itself because of the way in which you think it's supposed to happen. So this is your year to individualize the thing that is waiting for you, the thing that has longed for your recognition. This is your year to do it the way that you need to do it in order for it to have depth and meaning, in order for this to move away from this and into here so that you can be a part of the change that we long this world to see. You are the one that you've been waiting for. Because all along, you are the gift that you have craved. Isn't that ironic? That the gifts that you crave, you are the gift. You are the gift. And so the thing itself, the way that it works, what it does through law, and how to use it, is your guidepost and your template for what awaits you and I to a greater sense of expanded self. Show up. And I leave you with this. In order to show up for something new, you must make space for something new. What does that mean? It's literal, it's emotional, it's spiritual. You must make space within your heart, within your mind, to begin to accept things. So many of us are so afraid of space. Have you ever been around somebody who cannot stand silence and they won't shut up? And they will just keep talking because the silence is unbearable. Have you ever been judged because you have finished something and you're not quite sure what else to do and there's space involved? And we live in a world that says you can't have that. You must be doing. Yes, we must be doing, but we also should simultaneously be being. We must be being the thing itself in our doingness. And sometimes the being takes predominance and the being requires space. So this is your year to trust yourself and to create space for the doing to have the roots and the meaning and the depth that it is necessary and yearns to have by means of you. And so it is.